You're listening to Quiero Dinero, a personal finance podcast for the modern Latina. I'm your host, Janice Torres Rodriguez, and I'm here to help you be poderosa with your dinero. I'm an engineer, a blogger, and an entrepreneur that built a $50,000 side hustle, and I'm obsessed with all things personal finance. On this show, we're going to talk about how to make dinero, how to keep your dinero, and how to make it grow. Are you ready? Vámonos. Hola, mi gente. Welcome back to another episode of Yo Quiero Dinero, the podcast. This is your host, Janice. And if you're listening to this in real time, it is November 8th, 2020, and we are waking up with the idea and the reality. America has elected our very first woman of color as Vice President of these United States. Vice President-elect Kamala Harris officially gave her victory speech along with President-elect Joe Biden last night. And y'all, this is a big deal. We have never before seen a woman of color as a vice president in this country. For the first time, we are the first generation that's going to get to call someone Madam Vice President. And the fact that Kamala is a Black woman and a woman of Indian descent, I don't know about you, but I'm just feeling super duper inspired and re-energized that we as women of color can become anything we want to be. We can accomplish anything that we want to accomplish, and we are completely and utterly unstoppable. This girl is on fire! And that's why I'm so excited about today's episode. Today, we're going to be talking about how to stop sabotaging your financial goals and start pursuing financial freedom with Cinneah El-Amin of Flynanced. Cinneah is the creator of Flynanced, a debt-free travel and financial freedom blog where she inspires readers to fly financially free. At only 26, Cinneah has traveled to 28 countries across 6 continents and is often asked how she affords to travel. Realizing that many of her millennial peers were struggling with managing their money, not building wealth, and yearning to travel without financial barriers, she created Flynanced to answer that call. In her own finances, Cinneah is on track to become debt-free by the end of 2020 and kickstart her financial independence journey. She seeks to change the narratives for Black millennial women to live life without debt, build generational wealth, and see more of the world on their terms. With a background in financial services and business management, Cinneah brings tangible and accessible personal finance knowledge to her readers. I cannot wait for you to listen to Cinneah's story. Her story resonated so much with me because we are both women who really were just like earning good money and spending it like it was going out of style. And at some point, we both had like this come to Jesus moment that made us realize that sometimes the things that we're told look like success on the exterior are not actually what success looks like when we sit down and really think about what our long-term goals are. I love Cinneah's conversation because she's talking about something that I'm so passionate about, which is women of color building wealth. Like, y'all, we deserve to be wealthy AF, okay? And this conversation is definitely going to motivate you to realize that we are more than capable of building wealth for our families, building generational wealth, achieving financial independence, and getting to live our best financial lives. So I hope you love this conversation. Let's hop into this convo with Cinneah El-Amin of Flynanced. Before we hop into today's episode, I want to remind you that the best way that you can support the Yo Quiero Dinero podcast is to leave us a review on Apple Podcasts. If you listen to us on Apple, take a moment to leave us a rating and review. That way people like you can find us too. If you want more community, more inspiration, and more knowledge, be sure to follow us on Instagram at Yo Quiero Dinero Podcast and check out our blog, YoQuieroDineroPodcast.com, where you'll find personal finance content, information, and knowledge that will help you get your financial shit together. You take care of your body by exercising, eating right, and getting enough sleep. But are you doing the same for your mind? On this podcast, we're always talking about mindset and mental health as the foundation for financial wellness. So we're super proud to partner with BetterHelp to get you access to professional, affordable therapy right at your fingertips. Even with health insurance coverage, traditional therapy costs over $100 per session, and that's if you can even get an appointment. Online counseling is an effective, convenient, and affordable way to get help with many issues. You can chat with your therapist at your convenience in whatever mode you're most comfortable with. Just take a short quiz and get personally matched with one of BetterHelp's professional, licensed, and experienced counselors and get the support and guidance you need to start making a change. As a reminder, online therapy is not suitable for someone who's suffering from a severe mental health condition that makes them a danger to themselves or others. Download the BetterHelp app today and get started with 10% off exclusively for Yo Quiero Dinero podcast listeners. Just use the discount code Dinero, that's DINERO, and you can get 10% off your first month. You can also go to betterhelp.com/dinero for the same offer. BetterHelp. Affordable, private, online counseling, anytime, anywhere. Cinneah, welcome to the podcast. I'm so excited to have you here, girlfriend.
Thank you so much for having me. This is truly an honor, okay? Like,
Oh,
Yo
stop
quiero
it.
dinero. No, seriously. You have become such a powerful voice in our community. So for you to have me here means a lot. So thank you.
Oh my gosh, thank you. And that really, I think I'm still coming to grips with the fact that people even give a shit about what I'm talking about.
Mm.
But I honestly feel like it's the guests and it's people like you and your amazing stories that people ain't tuning in for me. I ain't got nothing to say. Y'all are the ones sharing all this
Well,
amazing content.
oh, thank you. Yeah, thank you so much.
Yeah. So let's get to know you. Go ahead and introduce yourself to the audience.
Yes. Hi, everyone. This is Cinneah El-Amin. I'm the creator of Flynanced, a debt free travel and financial freedom blog where I inspire my readers to fly financially free. I'm
Mm.
26 years old, and in my short life, I've been able to travel to 28 countries across 6 continents around this beautiful wide world. And I'm often asked how I afford to travel. So I created Flynanced to really answer the call a couple years ago, really feeling like, whoa, a lot of my friends don't know anything about managing their money. They're not building wealth. And so many people say that they want to travel, but feel like they have all these financial barriers keeping them from doing so. So finance is really my answer to say, hey, you can save for travel, build wealth, and still have other financial goals. That travel doesn't have to come at the expense of where you want to take your money and your finances. In 2020, I'm on track to become debt free this year and pay off
Woohoo!
woo over $23,000 in debt and really kickstart my financial independence journey. And I really see my purpose being here to change the narratives for Black millennial women like me to live debt free, right? Debt is so normalized in our communities.
Hmm.
So many of us don't know what it's like to have generational wealth and the cushions we can count on. So, really changing those narratives and encouraging more women like me to travel, see the world, and live life without limits. So I'm so excited to be here. My background is in financial services and business management, so I like to bring tangible and accessible personal finance knowledge to my readers and my followers. And I'm based in New York City, so that's me.
Girl, you got me fired up, and we're like 2 minutes into this conversation because
I'm
you were
ready.
speaking to my soul. Okay, we are talking about building wealth. We are talking about financial independence for women of color. I mean,
Yeah,
hello, this is why we exist, y'all. This is why we're
period.
here. So let's get into finding out more about you because I feel like, everything that we culminate into in this life, it's a result of our experiences. And we all have relationships with money. I'm sure you do too. So let's talk about that.
Absolutely.
What was your relationship like with money growing up? Talk me through it.
Yeah, of course. So, even though I said I'm based in New York City, I actually grew up in Baltimore City, in Baltimore, Maryland, in a lower middle class neighborhood, but really had a safe, comfortable, and loving childhood. My parents made incredible sacrifices that I didn't even know about as a child. And as a result, like I grew up having a really comfortable life. I grew up in private school. We went on vacations. I had birthday parties every year. Like holidays were a big thing in my household, and etc. So I really didn't understand truly the financial situation that we were in as a family, right? I just knew that, like, I would open my eyes and things would appear, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, so as a result, I think I grew up with a very shallow view of money and really didn't understand the consequences of reckless spending, right? As a young person, it was always like, oh, well, if I get into any money trouble, my parents will fix it, right?
Mm.
And I feel like that was such a slippery slope to be on, especially as a young Black woman. But kind of in hindsight, looking back, I can really see that living beyond our means was very normal in my family. And I think that I carried those ideas into adulthood, right? I grew up I grew up a layaway kid, right? So anyone who's like
Shout out to
familiar,
the layaway
okay,
account
shout
door. Oh my God.
literally shout out to layaway. And like,
Yeah.
as a kid, I didn't really get what it meant, right? When we would go into stores, we go into big department stores, and my mom would say, "Oh, like we just got to put this on layaway." Like I would be so annoyed because I would just be like, "Well, why can't I have the thing now?" Or like, "Why am I trying on this stuff?" But then you're like, "Oh no, that's for Christmas, right?" But what I didn't realize, right, as a child was that my mother was using what she had available to her, whatever credit and financing she could use to be able to get the things that she wanted to provide to her children. She had to do it in a way that was kind of like, a phrase that, maybe Southern Black folk may know, but robbing Peter to pay Paul. Like that was
Hmm.
she always
Yep.
said to me, and like I didn't really ever understand it, right? So when I got to college, that was kind of my wake up call. Like I was forced to see the world differently, from literally going through the FAFSA process and having to like enter in like, oh my god, this is what we make as a family, right? Like
Mm.
for the first time really seeing those numbers and starting to realize like what this means. And in college, like I worked multiple student jobs. It was a time in my parents' life where they were really unable to support me. And a lot of times I relied on credit cards to finance my life and the things that I wanted to do. And attending an Ivy League institution, I really started to see that I was in the have nots. Like, so if they're the have and the have nots, I was definitely in the have nots, right? When I would talk to
Yeah.
friends about, oh, winter break, where are you going? Oh, I'm going to Aspen and we're going to France, whatever else, right? Like, it never really got to me, but it was just so apparent, right? While, meanwhile, here I am like, okay, well, I hope I have a job waiting for me,
I know
after
that's right.
when I go back home, or else I'm not gonna have any money. So that's gonna be a problem, right? But I knew, in college that I didn't want to continue struggling for the rest of my adult life. And that really motivated me to be strategic about, okay, when I get out of college, I need to flip this into a high paying job. I knew I wanted to make six figures in my early 20s and really try to set myself up strategically to get there. And really grateful that I did. And kind of all of this, I feel like led me to fire, right? It was literally it was like a muggy day. I was working full time in New York City, and an article from The Cut pops up on my email because I was like on their newsletter or something. And it was like, I'm retiring at 35 or something. I was just like, whoa, pause. What is this? What is this? I can retire early? Like, how is this a thing? And honestly, that was a light bulb for me around fire, really being able to take all the things that I had experienced as a person, experienced as a young person, now being a full-time adult, and seeing, okay, I can be an everyday earner, even a higher earner within my family and my community, but really work towards building real wealth. And that really inspired me. And the rest is history.
Yo, shout out to the fire movement. Like, they're
Period.
doing God's work, okay? Doing God's work by just even putting the idea out there that you don't need to slave over a 9 to 5 till you're 67, 70 years old to then retire off of peanuts.
Okay.
Okay? It's not a vibe.
It's not a vibe. It's definitely not a vibe. It is definitely not a vibe for me. And I'm so excited about even just more contemporarily, right? What Instagram and social media has been able to do to just show me that there are more than just like bro
Rich
white
white
guys
dudes.
doing it. Right,
Yeah.
exactly, right? Because at first when I learned about fire, I was like, I gotta be on all these Reddit threads and what is this? Like, I don't even know what this is, right? But then, social media really opened my eyes that like, okay, no, there are dope women of color, they're dope black women, Latina women who are doing this and showing how even with the things that we may have inherited as people that we can still pull ourselves out of that and build real wealth. So I'm so
Amen to
excited.
that.
Yes.
Yes. All right. So, one thing that you touched on that I thought was super fascinating is this idea that you were like, I need to start making like six figures as like a 20 something, which I don't even think that was in my brain, like that I could even earn that type of money back when I was graduating. So, what kind of things did you do to actually make that happen for you?
Yeah. So I'll say that throughout college, I was really fortunate to just be like, I call myself like a program kid. Like, it was just like, if there was like an opportunity or a program that was like for high achieving,
Hmm.
minority students, I would sign my ass up for it. Right. So I think that exposed me to a lot of different career opportunities, people who just kind of, put ideas in my mind around what was possible. Right. So I think one of those things was one, being really intentional every year of college, my summer breaks. If I didn't have a job, I was hustling to get an internship, right? I was always being really strategic about building up my professional experience early on, right? And I really didn't give myself a lot of slack in that. So, by the time I graduated, I could say, oh, I've already worked at, Fortune 500 companies. These are the things that I've worked on. These are the types of things that I've managed. And I think that gave me a good level of like acumen kind of going into the workforce. And then another thing was really being strategic in terms of graduating with a liberal arts degree and realizing as a college senior, okay, I need more. I felt like I needed more business experience and wasn't sure how to get that. I knew I wanted to work in corporate. Um, but I didn't want to kind of be in roles that were more like soft skills. I didn't want to be like in marketing communications, right? So I knew I had to do something to kind of show that I could be well positioned for more technical or analytical roles. So what I actually did was I uh, decided to pursue a graduate degree that was offered to me as part of a full ride fellowship. So again, being
Ah,
strategic, kind of seeing those opportunities and seeing, oh, y'all gonna pay for me to get a master's degree? Bet. Okay. Oh,
thank
and
you.
right, okay, because degrees for the free is a thing, right? So I think all of those things kind of helps me, and along the way, just kind of being very clear about what I want and what I didn't want. I saw myself working and living in New York City. Even though my graduate program was in North Carolina, I was just like, that's the only thing I'm focused on. If it's not New York, I don't want it. And I just think along the way, just kind of being so strategic, being so intentional with my vision that I had for myself, I think that the stars just honestly aligned. So I think that's how I did it.
I love the fact that you touch on vision because it is
Mm,
definitely something that I feel like a lot of us just don't sit down and think, what would I want my life to look like 5, 10, 15 years from now? Like we're kind of
yes.
going through the motions and just doing shit because people tell us we're supposed to do these things. And it's like, but what do you want? Because what you
Yes.
want and what people are telling you can be completely diverged from each other. And if you don't want to wake up one day and look around and be like, what the fuck is this life? Because I don't
Hmm.
know who I am. I don't know what I've been doing. You got to have that vision.
Totally.
Yeah,
Totally. And I feel like that's what propels a lot of us, even in this fire movement, right? Like, fire is not
absolutely.
glamorous. And I think
It
that,
sure
like,
ain't, okay? It
people
sure
might
ain't.
is not, and people I think see the highlight reels on social media and see people who hit those goals, like shout out to you for achieving a level of fire. Like, okay, I'm clapping for you in
Thank
my bedroom
you.
right here. But yeah, I think that vision is incredibly important, and just keeping that center, I think, is what powers us forward. And I think what drives us when we're doing stuff that is literally so counterculture, it doesn't even make sense. Like, oh,
Right.
you're living below your means? What's that? you know?
That's what I'm saying. Cause I'm like, it's way more luxurious on Instagram if I'm paying $10,000 for like a first class ticket to the Maldives. But that $10,000 in my 401k, that's gonna serve me in ways that trip, when I take it, because I'm gonna take it too. But I'll do it in a way that
Exactly.
A, I'm not putting it on credit cards, I'm not getting into debt, I'm not sacrificing my future self for my current self.
Yep.
Mm,
Totally.
all
Oof.
right. We're going to church today, honey. I don't know if I
Okay.
told you,
We are
okay?
preaching. I'm loving it. Okay.
All right, so I want to talk about your debt situation. What
Yes.
was that like as you graduated, start making money? Were you always like frugal? Well, you said when you were growing up, you kind of like didn't really understand the true impact of money and that. So like how did that evolve for you? And what was the light bulb moment that made you say, you know what? I got to start doing something different.
Yes. Okay. This is such a great question. So I'll just say I think a lot of people see me and see my brand with finance and think that I've always had it together. And I am here to tell you that that is not true. Okay. my debt situation prior to making a change was definitely a result of living beyond my means and just having a scarcity mindset around money, right? I talked about how I got a full ride to get my master's degree, but yet I still found myself taking out over $16,000 in student loans that I didn't really need, but felt like I needed because I wanted money to spend. I wanted to live in like the super luxurious student housing, just like
Mm-hmm.
all this lifestyle creep, right? That like again was so normalized in my life and in my family, right? I remember being there being like, should I take out some loans? And people in my family being like, what's $16,000? Like that's not even that much. You graduated with no loans from undergrad. Like, pretty much just kind of trying to be like, really, girl? Like there's so many people with so much more debt. Like just take out the damn loans, right?
Right.
So, to date, that's still one of the biggest financial regrets of my life because when I just think about even though I really wasn't making a dent until this year in the loans, just knowing that I had this financial burden that I really didn't even need. So I think it really all started from there, right? Living and working full time in New York City, I put myself into over $10,000 in credit card debt from just swiping without thinking, right? Like I'm telling you, I kind of grew up just expecting someone else to rescue me when it came to my money. So it's just like, oh, I'm not even gonna check how much I've been spending, right? And, you know, just for the first time, kind of being on my own, thinking I had it together, being like, oh, I'm making good money. I can do it until I couldn't do it, right? And really the wake up call for me was in 2018 when I had to open up a personal loan as a last resort to pay off those credit cards. But yet I still
Yes.
continued to overspend, right? It just was like I was in such a vicious cycle of living paycheck to paycheck, living off of credit cards, overspending, and really just not taking responsibility for my finances. Right? I think I was just in such a weird mental space where I just took no responsibility for what I was doing to my own financial future. Right?
Yeah.
Um, so the light bulb moment for me was, just honestly kind of dragging my feet all of 2019 and being like, I know I want to do better. Okay, like I got to work through some real serious mental blocks on like why is it that, really identifying what are my spending triggers, really for the first time like rethinking what a budget means to me and not just kind of seeing it as like, oh, I'm depriving myself of something, but like no, I'm like giving myself a plan for what I'm doing. And I think also just kind of feeling like freeing myself for the first time, like making six figures at a job. I think that also psychologically told me, okay, like, girl, you got to get it together. Like, you're making
I
way
know
too
that's
much
right.
money, right? To like be living paycheck to paycheck. Like, this is ridiculous, right? So, like I said, I started off 2020 with, for the first time, added up all my debt and was just like, what is this? $23,000 in debt. At that point, I had student loans, credit card lines, and personal loans. And, I just said, I'm just going to put it out there. I'm going to say that I'm going to do this. I have no idea how I'm going to do this. I've never done anything like this. And just for the first time, really trying to work on my spending habits and really just like the negative money narratives that I had, right? Like I always told myself like I was incapable of saving, that I'd always be in more debt, that I needed to make more money, even as I was making six figures. And, this experience has really just taught me none of that was true. So it's honestly, this personal finance journey has just been one of really getting closer to myself, knowing and learning more about myself, and really starting to unlearn some of those bad money habits and just like negative self-talk that I think I had like conditioned myself for those 2.5 years to believe that were true and that were truly just keeping me from what I believe is my higher purpose. So that's it in a
Yes.
nutshell.
I freaking love that. And I love that you touch on the fact that when you have that moment, because we all have this moment when we're just like, we can't keep on this freaking treadmill. You just have to start looking within. Like, it's not just about
Yeah.
the numbers, it's not just about the spending. This is all controlled by a human that's got shit going on in their brain, in their heart, in things that they've learned, and if you don't acknowledge that, it's like you're not going to be successful in anything that you try to do, whether it's like controlling your debt situation, whether it's trying to like start a new relationship, whether it's trying to do something different in life. Like you got to get real with the shit that's going on within. So I'm really glad that you touched on that.
Totally. For me, mindset was where it all started, right? I think a lot of people think, oh, when I want to pay off debt fast, like, there's some mathematical calculation or some tool that I need. No, it really just starts with like your mindset. And I know for me, I was not a person who, I had to take out a bunch of loans to get my education or other things, right? My unique situation was just I spent too damn much and I
Mm-hmm.
had no sense of control and self-control or restraint when it came to understanding like needs versus wants. So you're totally right. For me, it had to start with my mindset and really working on all the other stuff, all that other baggage that I was carrying, and realizing
Mm-hmm.
like this debt is not a shield and I gotta let it go.
Absolutely. And I can absolutely relate to your story too, in the sense that, when I was in my 20s earning more money, I got to my 30s, I was earning six figures, and I had convinced myself that I would get out of this cycle of debt if I just made more. And
Mm,
then I'm making six figures and I'm still doing the same shit. I'm still at $10,000 in credit card debt. I'm
yeah,
still taking 401k loans. I'm
yeah,
still booking vacations on credit because I don't have the money saved up to do it.
right.
And I think at that point, when I was just like, bitch, you make too much money for this nonsense. This is not
Yeah,
okay.
yes.
I had to really like look in the mirror and be like, how much
Yeah,
more do you need to earn to start being responsible with what you got?
yes. Yeah, no, totally. And I think for me, I think it helped that I started learning about fire at the same time that I was starting to also make more in my corporate job, that I think it
Mm-hmm.
was like, wow, this feels so attainable that like I could be on this trajectory to be able to continue along a journey of just saving a large portion of my income, right? I have that privilege to be able to say that that is something that is within my reach, but I'm
Mm-hmm.
not going to be able to do that if I keep living this way. And I think that that was, again, that's why I say like this. I don't know what divine intervention was going on. I truly feel like this is part of my purpose because, right, it's so easy that I could have gone through the rest of my 20s not ever having that moment, right? Not ever
Yeah.
having that light bulb go off, and God knows where I would be financially, right? So I'm
Yeah.
I'm so fortunate that, that everything you just said in terms of being able to just face the music and say,
Mm-hmm.
it ain't nobody else but you, sis.
Absolutely. All right. So I'm curious, what actually like motivated you or inspired you to make a change in how you handled your finances?
Yes, for me, it's all about representation. I think that
Mm-hmm.
I needed to see people that looked like me, who I felt like I could resonate with their journey before I could even focus on my own, right? So even though, like, yeah, I knew that I wasn't shit by like just how much I was spending, and just like it's so ridiculous that like, how do you have nothing to show for the fact that you make, you know, as much money as you make? But really, one of the first women to inspire me to live debt free was Carmen Perez of Make Real Sense.
I
Um,
love Carmen.
I
She's
love
so
her
awesome.
so much. Yes, it is. It's so crazy coming full circle how things happen. Right. I used to just like follow her as just like an anonymous follower of hers from afar. And I'm really happy to say that now she's definitely somebody I feel like in this community I can, reach out to and talk to, and
I
definitely
love
is a
that.
definitely is a IG homegirl of mine. But seeing her accomplish her goal of paying off over $57,000 of debt as a Black Latina woman, and at that point she lived in New York City, really showed me that I could do it too, right? And before I
Mm-hmm.
found her profile, I can't even remember how I found her profile, but I never saw a Black woman besides like, Tiffany of the Budgetnista. I never saw someone who looked like me kind of like talk about paying off debt and just kind of humbly being like, honestly, this is what it is. Just
Yeah.
authentically being like, I've made mistakes, I've done bad things, but here I am, right? And it's so funny that a lot of the things that she was showing us on like her blog and her Instagram back then were honestly a lot of things that came from like Dave Ramsey's Total Money Makeover, right? Like the cash envelope system and all of this around like truly understanding her wants from her needs. But I think it was just like the fact of seeing her do it. It was just like, oh my god, I can do this too.
That
Um,
matters so much.
so much. It matters
Yeah.
so much. That it was just like, okay, I could see 50 million white people do it, but until I saw, a black woman do it who I felt like had flaws like me, right, and wasn't just, kind of putting off this narrative that like, oh, just get your act together, right? Um,
Right.
I think her story really sowed a seed in me, and I think that's when I started to take seriously that like, okay, I could do this too. I gotta do this. And like I said, I think also being introduced to the fire community and just really being inspired by the idea that I could pass along generational wealth and that it didn't have to be something that was handed to me, but that could really come from me. Because I
Absolutely.
know what because I know what the inverse looks like, right? I know what it's like to not get nothing passed down onto you but bills and just kind of feeling like almost that pressure, right? Like I have older parents who in a lot of ways see me as their retirement plan. I'm like, oh no, 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 baby. um, so I think that when I also learned about the fire community, I think I was really just kind of inspired about that as something as honestly my next challenge. I think I heard you say that you were just like you always kind of gravitate towards a challenge, maybe on your last
Oh,
live.
yes. Mm-hmm.
And I
Yes.
think that was it for me too. It was just like, oh, say I won't save and invest $1 million. Say I won't do
Thank
it.
you.
Okay.
Now I gotta do it.
I have to do it. Now I have to do it, right? And then it's like, oh, but I could do it passively. Like I don't have to like read not narrow chart. I don't have to look at trend lines. If I want
Mhm.
to, right? That's my business. But I can just like put money into into securities that are just generally gonna trend up. Like, hello, like it just was a no brainer for me. So I
Absolutely.
think seeing people that look like me embark on this journey and then just learning about fire and feeling like this is almost like is this a secret? Like, are there whoa, like how is this not a thing that I know about, right? I think both those
Well,
things
that's the thing we're talking
motivate
about,
me.
right? Is the
Okay.
representation.
Mm,
It's like, hello, how the hell are we supposed to know that this is for us if ain't nobody that looks like us doing this shit?
okay.
Okay?
Not a single person, right? And even to
Right.
this day, when I kind of tell people like, yeah, fire, 4% withdrawal rate, they're just like, what? What? Like it's even
Exactly.
still foreign to people that, are like me in their 20s, millennials that like talk about wanting to pass along generational wealth, but I'm just like, here's a surefire way. And you don't have to like pick stocks or do all of that stuff,
Mhm.
right? So, the work continues.
So important. And y'all, if you're spending time on social media, you should be learning something. So get off TikTok unless you're learning from people like Delia and the Money Coach, who's teaching you all
Yes.
about fire. Like, invest the time that you're looking at screens to learn shit. Cause that's literally how I learned about fire. And that's how
Mm-hmm.
you learned about it. You're reading stuff.
Period.
I'm listening to podcasts. I'm reading books. I'm following people on Instagram. And I'm like, oh my God, it's real. Like, it's not
It's
just
like really
white
real.
dudes doing this. It's literally black women, Latinas, people that you maybe don't see on CNBC or
Right.
Market Watch or CNN talking about this shit. But guess what? It's happening. And the fact that you're talking about it, that I'm talking about it, like, we're normalizing this idea that women of color can also be wealthy as fuck.
Yes. No, totally. I agree. I have to echo that it's like, yeah, Instagram can be a mind suck, but it also can truly be a community where you can learn and expand in ways that like I didn't even know were possible, right? I had no idea that I would be able to, like it wasn't even that long ago that I learned about all this stuff. And here I am now, like being asked to talk about it. That it's just like, this is incredible. Like, this is
Yep.
crazy. Like, I'm here for this, right? And what I love about fire is that like it's just like it's a system that you follow. Live beyond your means and save into, low cost index funds. I mean, that's literally like
It's
it.
literally two steps, y'all.
It's
Don't spend
literally
everything you make, and what you're not spending, invest it. That's it.
yes, that's it. Like it just was like almost like it was just like, wow, that's all I got to do. Okay.
Yes.
Sign me up.
Yes, it is really that simple, y'all.
Mhm.
So, you decided, you know what? I'm about this life. Now, walk me through your debt payoff journey. How did you get started? What was your game plan? How much debt have you paid off? Like, what are we celebrating today? Hola, mi gente. Let me tell you, when I was first coming up with this podcast, I only had a name. I had no idea what I was actually going to do to distribute this out to the masses. That is until I found the Anchor app. The Anchor app is a completely free tool that you can use to get your podcast on and popping right now. It's free. There's creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer, and Anchor will distribute your podcast for you so you can hear it on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and many more, and you can share it with your tias and your primas and anybody else that you think would love your podcast. The great thing is that you can make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership, and it's everything that you need to make a podcast all in one place. So if you're ready to start your podcast, download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started.
Yeah, so today we are celebrating that to date, since January 15th, 2020, I've paid off over $16,000 in debt, which is
Wow.
insane. And I am still amazed when I tell myself that, like, girl, you did that. Like you doing
Mm-hmm.
that and you did that, right? And that debt was across student loans, credit cards, and personal loan debt. And honestly, like we talked about, I started with that mindset and really for the first time acknowledging and writing down all my debt. Like
Mm-hmm.
it was truly a wake up call for me because I had never really just kind of added up everything. Like it was just like, yeah, I know I got student loans. Oh yeah, like I know that I live in this vicious cycle of paying off these credit cards, but like really for the first time sitting down and being like, oh wow, like across all of this, you know it's real because I like wrote a blog post about it and just like put it on Instagram. You know
Yeah.
it's real when your bestest friend in the whole wide world hits you up like, dang, girl, I didn't even know you was in that much in the hole, right? I was literally keeping up like this facade that like I had my shit together, that like everything was fine. Lo and behold, I'm, 5 figures in debt. Like,
Mm-hmm.
no. So it was just like for so long I avoided my debt. Like I just thought it was just going to walk away. So, my game plan was really set around 5 core principles and I wrote about this on my blog, but really for me being a recovering overspender, it was about limiting my credit card spending, tracking as many no spend days as I could, really tracking my spending for the first time. That was not something that was ever really native to me. Like
Yeah.
I'm not really a naturally frugal person. Like I said, my household growing up was we robbing Peter to pay Paul. So what do you mean track my spending like down to the cents? It was not something I never did. Right. Really getting comfortable with like budgeting with cash, realizing that like, okay, I have a trigger around just kind of like seeing plastic and thinking that that means money is available, money to spend, and that's not it. Like I was literally penny proud with the Steve Harvey credit card. Like if anybody watched the Proud Family when she got that credit card and it was just like
She
spend me,
really
spend me,
did.
spend me. Like that was me. It was just like yeah, 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 yeah. And then really being intentional about sending windfall money. So just money that I would get either in the form of bonuses, tax refunds, or just anything unexpected that wasn't a part of my normal income, sending that to debt. So all those things combined really helped me. But also in January, I set intentions to attract more money, which I was able to do when I was extended an offer in March, right as the world, or not the world, but the United States really started to come to grips with how serious the COVID pandemic was. But I actually was extended an offer to increase my salary by 30%. And
Wow.
move company. So, again, like I made that sacrifice that I was just like, I have to leave my, this employer where, yes, I have a ton of relationship equity and people were literally floored where when I was like the first one out, right? Pre COVID, like this is literally like as New York City was shutting down, I like sent in
Mm-hmm.
my resignation letter and they were just like, are you serious? I'm like, yeah, I'm real, real serious.
It's the
Um,
vision, though, right? It's the
Okay,
vision.
it's the vision, right? And I knew that it was going to be a lot harder for me to just get to my goal without having that cushion. And and I'm really happy to say that I didn't fall into the traps of lifestyle creep by doing that, right? That like, if you kind of look at my year in review, you'll see that like around March, April, just like the amount that I was able to send to debt really increased because I was truly being intentional, especially in those early days of social distancing, to just put all of that extra money towards my debt. So, I would say I stuck mostly to my plans. 2020 has been like, woo, a
Listen,
challenging year. So I definitely have moments where I kind of struggled through some of those core principles, but I'm feeling really excited and motivated and confident that I will reach my goal of paying off my remaining $6,233 by New Year's Eve. So that's my goal.
oh my gosh, congratulations. This is
Thank
monumental.
you. Thank you.
You know
Thank
what it's
you so
gonna feel
much.
like when you start throwing those thousands of dollars at shit that's not owing somebody money?
Phew,
Like
baby.
that is the level up of leveling up. Okay.
Okay. Okay. To really, for the first time in my adult life, say that I don't owe nobody no damn thing. Like nothing.
Yes.
Okay. Nothing. Like, yeah, I'm so excited for that. Actually, a quote that I want to shout out, an account that I like to follow in the fire community, Frugal to Fire,
Hmm.
posted, I'm so ready for that asset only life, and
Ooh, yes.
oof, for me to kind of be walking into a new year, really feeling like this is it, like this is a new chapter in kind of my life moving forward, is so
Yes.
exciting.
This is you flying financially free. Okay.
Yes, doesn't it have such a great ring to it? Come on.
It really does. So let's talk about your travel because I had to pick my
Hmm.
chin up off the floor when you said that at 26, you've already been to 28 countries across
Yes.
six continents. I'm like, oh my God, hashtag goals. But
Yes,
how
thank
do
you.
you do this? Because I feel like, a lot of people think like travel has to be this luxury and you don't think so. Like you feel like it should be something if you care about, like you should budget for it. And you do budget for it, right?
Absolutely. Yep. Absolutely. So, I mean, let's take a step back, right? I was not always this way, right? I think,
Mm-hmm.
like what we talked about, we have a lot of commonalities in that. For, a long time, as I was kind of trudging through my debt, I was traveling often, yes, but I was putting on credit and just kind of
Mm-hmm.
like literally just keeping up with this vicious cycle, right? Flexing on the gram, but really, I didn't have no money for it. It was just like, y'all accept American Express or nah? Uh, so coming in 2020, I was very intentional. And actually, one of my first posts that I posted in the year, I said, very boldly, like, I am going to travel to 4 countries on cash, and I'm going to become debt free, right? So that was my vision, right? We keep talking about vision, but that was my vision for 2020, my 2020 vision. So this year was really the first time that I was super intentional with creating a travel fund, and that has really been a game changer for me. So what a travel fund is simply a savings account or checking account that is separate from the rest of my money, just one of the accounts that I manage as part of my financial plan, but it's specific for my travel related expenses. So
Mm-hmm.
anytime that I want to buy an airline, air ticket, I'm doing a group trip and I need to, put in my contribution towards the house or, souvenirs, wardrobe, anything that's kind of related to travel, I am intentional about planning ahead, determining what's a comfortable amount that I want to save, giving myself like, several months to save towards that goal, and then being intentional about pulling the money from that account. So, like I was really about to do that. Like I really had all intentions on doing that. Actually, kind of right until May or so, I had saved about $6,000 towards travel, right? Because I had plans to go to Morocco and Barbados and Curacao. Like I had a jam packed year, so I thought ahead of me. So, I was really excited to be able to, for the first time, really have that freedom of being able to say, yes, I'm here, but I am also here debt free, which is really exciting.
Mm-hmm.
But then, aside from that, it's really just being intentional about the ways in which, like, I hack to find deals. So, that's just kind of having that Rolodex of different sites and apps that I look to for travel savings, right? So everything from subscribing to Scott's Cheap Flights, of which I'm an affiliate. Um, they send a pretty much a daily newsletter to your email of really premium deals across different airlines to places around the world. So I love just kind of being able to kind of get those deals sent directly to me, and I don't even have to look for them, right?
That's
Um,
awesome.
and then another thing that's actually been really helpful for me, just in terms of rethinking saving for travel, is also just being open to group travel. So a lot of times when I've gone on group travel, group trips, like what's been great about it is that they often give you the option to pay in installments essentially, right? But like they're not charging you interest. But what's
Hmm.
great about that from my perspective was that I was always able to kind of like set a far enough goal, know that I'm working towards a destination or a trip, but that like, okay, I can save for this like monthly. Like I don't just have to kind of like impulsively just kind of put something on my card and not have a plan for how I'm going to pay it.
Uh-huh.
So those have been some of the ways that I've been able to travel often, especially as an adult.
Yeah, I love that. And I definitely do the same thing. I have a travel account because I was like you, I was putting all my trips on credit. I'm like, I'll pay for this when I get back. And I'm booking a trip while I'm on the trip. So then I
Yes.
got two more debts to pay. And it's just like, yo, but you know what's funny? I feel like as I have gotten way more intentional about like my vision again, I don't feel the need to travel as much because I came to the realization that I was using travel as a way to cope with a really shitty job and like just life that I wasn't enjoying. So it was almost like an escape, like a drug.
Ooh,
Okay?
you better
That's some
speak on.
soul
Okay.
searching shit.
That you better speak on that, okay? And it's so funny that
Yes.
you say that because I really feel like I'm coming into that space as well, right? Even as I kind of think about 2021, right? And a lot of people are starting to ask me like, "Oh, where you going?" like whatever, and it's just like, "Wow, for the first time like I really don't like have as many ambitious goals to like see 50 million countries." Like obviously, yes,
Hmm.
travel is always going to be something that gives me personal fulfillment, but I think for the first time in my life, I'm also just like I'm actually like really excited to kind of just like stay back and like continue building my business, building my brand. But wow, what you just said like was really hit the nail on the head because when I think about even like in 2018, 2019, where I was just like, I was literally taking monthly trips, whether that was domestically or abroad, like I truly was running away from myself. Like I was running away
Hmm.
from the problems that I didn't want to address in my own self, in my mental health, in my emotional health. Right. And
Yeah.
that, you don't have to think about those things when you always run in to get to another trip, you run into another destination. So
Right.
I think that is very profound, right? And that's not to say that I probably will take about 4 trips next year, right? Just being realistic. But I think it's the for the first time in my life that I'm also just like, yeah, actually, I could sit
Right.
out a few of these.
Because you're going into it with a different mindset. It's not like you need to
Yeah.
escape. It's not, like I used to have so much anxiety and so much expectation for a trip because I felt like I needed it to justify why I was killing myself at this job that I hated and why I
Mm,
didn't enjoy my life. So there was like so much expectation built on the trip. And if it wasn't perfect, if something happened, it's like, shit, now I got to book another one because that one's going to be the one that fixes everything. And at some
mm,
point, it's like, yo, like you're causing yourself even more anxiety because now you're like spending money you don't have, setting up expectations that are unrealistic, and you're not even there to like really enjoy the experience. You're just there
right,
using it as a distraction.
right.
Yeah. Yo, we're doing like soul work here today.
Ooh, I love it.
All
I
right, so
love
let's
it.
continue along that theme because I love this concept of financial self care, and I recently wrote about it on the blog. So I'm curious, what does financial self care mean to you, and how does travel play into your financial goals?
Yeah, financial self-care for me has definitely evolved. And I would say now it looks like the deliberate actions of managing my finances so that my mental, physical, emotional, and financial health are all aligned, right? So,
Hmm.
so much of what we talked about is that the bad money habits that I picked up and kind of continued for years as an adult were really because I wasn't taking stock of how I felt, right? About like myself, about like my place in this world, about like what I was doing, right? And I think honestly, before kind of starting to show up authentically for myself through finance, I think I really struggled with like, what the hell am I doing? Right. Like
Mm-hmm.
I don't just want to work this corporate job. I feel like there's more that I want to give to the world. I feel like I'm getting anxious because I know that there's something else I want to be doing, but like I haven't done it, right? I mean, we
Yeah.
can even talk about for 2 years, I sat on the idea of finance, right? Like
Mm.
literally, like I was talking about starting this, talking about this stuff in 2018, but I was so paralyzed by fear because I
Yes.
knew I wasn't taking care of my own finances, that it was just like, well, how can I even talk about any of this stuff when I'm a hypocrite, right? How can I talk
Mm.
about anything related to, traveling and being successful when I don't feel like a success? I feel like a failure, right? So,
Mm-hmm.
woo, it was like some deep shit. Literally, like I have text messages from friends from 2018 where like a friend actually gave me the name for Flynanced, and that was like in
Wow.
December 2018. But when did I actually start to really show up for it? 2020. And like I'm, so fortunate that, it's been so well received and that I've really built this community around it. But I just think about all that time that I spent really not believing myself, having so much self doubt, and all of that I think was related to me avoiding my finances. So, financial
Mm-hmm.
self care for me looks like allowing myself space in my budget to do the things that I love, like travel. It looks like creating systems for myself to avoid my overspending triggers. It looks like having accountability partners like my financial advisor to help me stay on top of my wealth building goals and not feel like I have to do it all alone. And honestly, it really looks like having friends, family, and partners who respect my financial boundaries and
Woo!
don't judge me for them,
I know that's right. That's a
which
big
is
ass
tough.
deal.
Woo,
Mhm.
which was tough. And I think, especially, I think when I started this year saying, oh, I'm going to become debt free, especially to my family, I don't think they thought I was serious
Like,
about it.
but
I don't
why?
know. Right. It was like, really? Or even when I was like talking about finance, right? I think they also have come a long ways away from like at the beginning of the year when I was just like, oh, I want you to read a new article I put out. And they would be like, oh my God, why are you putting all of your business out
Mm.
there? Like, people
Mm-hmm.
don't need to know all that. And I'm just like, yeah, they do. Like, this is my story. People need to know this. And like, nobody is going to come knocking down the door looking for me. Trust me, I'm not that hard to find. Find me another Cinneah El-Amin and okay, so yeah, I think all of those things were part of my financial self-care. And travel is just something that gives me so much personal fulfillment, so I really have started to see travel as a financial goal, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that saving for travel is a non-negotiable for me, right? Even as I pursue fire, I know that I will always have a sinking fund for travel and even for long-term travel, because I definitely see myself in the next 3 years taking a sabbatical or longer to really be able to travel and take that leap of faith with my business, right? um so for so long, like we talked about, I didn't financially prioritize travel, so sometimes I would feel guilty. But now I'm really excited to say that I can fly financially free of debt and those that guilt and shame that I carried for so long around wanting to travel more but not feeling like it was part of my financial plan. So I hope through finance to show other people that travel and smart financial goals do not have to be mutually exclusive.
Yes. Yes. Yes to all of this. I'm so excited. Okay. All right. So I want to know, as someone who is killing the game right now, you are in control of your finances in a way that you have not been in the past. What advice would you give to somebody that was in, old Cinneah's position where it's just like, oh my God, I want to get my shit together, but I don't even know where to start? If you're a side hustler, a gig worker, or a full on entrepreneur boss babe, you know that tax time sucks. But it's a necessary evil when it comes to owning your own business, so why not make it less stressful? That's why I love Keeper Tax. Keeper Tax automatically finds tax write offs amongst your purchases for your business, and it helps people save over $1,200 in 10 minutes on average. First, they scan your past purchases for write offs. It auto monitors your purchases for write offs you might have missed, and at tax time, you can file your taxes right through Keeper Tax or seamlessly export your savings. To find out more, check out keepertax.com/dinero.
Yeah, so my advice, I feel like I have 3 points of advice for someone just getting started. I think first is just around self education, right? Educating yourself through books, media, incredible blog sources, like what we talked about, right? You can use Instagram to be a mind suck, or you can use it to get connected with ideas that are going to challenge and really kind of lead you to new possibilities. So, for example, I'm reading I Will Teach You to Be Rich by Ramit Sethi, and it is incredible. Wow. I think I'm literally just going to, I think this is the only gift I'm going to give for Christmas this year. I'm just give it to everybody. You get a book. You get a book. Okay. So I would highly recommend this to anyone who wants to start on their journey to read this book. I've learned so much in this journey, just kind of like in piecemeal, but so much of like what I consider to be my plan as I think about building wealth and living debt free. He's really summed up in this book. And then, you know what, like what we talked about, I find and learn still to this day so much from other accounts that I find in the hashtag debt free community, hashtag fire community, and now through hashtag black PF community. So, it's been great to kind of follow different accounts because, what's great about personal finance is that it is so deeply personal. So
Hmm.
the way you might see things, someone else might see it differently. And I think that matters, right? That it's not a one size fits all. It's not a, you got to be on team Susie Orman or team Dave Ramsey, right? It's like, no, actually I can take like bits and pieces from everyone to find a plan that works for me. So
Yes.
that's definitely where it starts. And then I think my second point is around seeking professional help. And I feel like a lot of people think like, oh, I don't need a money coach. I can figure it out myself. Like it's my money, it's my personal finance. And for so many reasons, which like I get, but it's just like if you're trying to lose weight, like you would get a personal trainer. If you are a professional athlete, you would have a coach. If like
Yep.
in any other space in life, we see and it worth an investment to invest in professional health. So, I think sometimes we have to kind of push through those barriers around why we don't think that that's necessary for our finances because there's really no shame in seeking out counsel early on in your journey, especially to just get a framework for setting up your first budget and setting achievable goals, right? And I think this is the point that's crucial, though, right? It doesn't mean that you just blindly follow the advice of someone, even if you trust them, right?
Hmm.
Especially if you like are working for someone who may be backed by an insurance company, right? At the end of the day, these people have jobs, they get compensated in different ways, right?
Right.
So I don't mean blindly follow advice like open up insurance policies or accounts. Like I think that's why it's so important to start with number one, educate yourself first so that you build up your own point of view on how to manage your money, right? And that your coach or advisor is someone there who's there to cheer you on, right? They're not supposed to be there to dictate where your money should go no matter what charts or illustrations they show you, right? I think that's
Hmm.
so important.
Yeah.
And then I think the third point is just around celebrating your small wins, right? I think sometimes we get so fixated on like the big goal, like paying off all our debt, hitting $1,000 net worth, right? Like all of these
Mhm.
incredible things, but I think we forget to acknowledge the small wins. Like this week, I'm celebrating the fact that like I finally cracked the code on how much food I should be buying as like a single human being, right?
Yes,
Like,
that is a
like
big deal.
it's a big deal, but like it's a small win, right? So, even just like successfully managing your budget for the first time, finding leftover money in a budget, making your first dollar through your side hustle, saving your first $100 in your emergency fund. Like, I feel like all of those things are worth celebrating along the way. So, don't forget to do those things 'cause I think it makes the journey so much more enjoyable. So, those are my three
Yes,
things.
that's
Anything that
excellent
you would
advice.
add?
You know what? That is honestly what I would tell people because that's where I started. I really, once I had the mindset shift, then it was a matter of educating myself. Then it's a matter of finding community, which I did amongst social media and through this podcast. And then it's like, yeah, I hired the professional. I have a CFP. I have an accountant. I have people that are working towards this goal.
Mhm.
And yes, I do celebrate my small wins. So like if I want to say, you know what, I made an extra $1,000 deposit in my brokerage account this week. You know what that means? I'm not making dinner. Okay? I'm
Yeah.
not making dinner. That's my reward. And it doesn't have to be this big thing. Like, I think
Right.
there's that's the only way you stay motivated during this journey, because it's a long-term game. It's not like you're going to wake up tomorrow and you're going to be a millionaire. It's
Right.
deliberate, actionable, consistent choices to get to that point. And if it just feels like torture the whole time, you're never going to get there.
Agree. I
All
totally
right, so I
agree.
want to talk about fire. So
Okay.
what does your fire journey look like once you're debt free? Like, what's your plan?
Yeah, so my plan in terms of building wealth quickly is I really want to, for the first time, achieve like a 50% year, for the year savings rate. So
Hmm.
I know that that may fluctuate a bit. I'm expecting probably to save a bit more in the beginning of the year, especially like as I get a bonus and different things. But that's really key. I think in terms of accounts, I'm really for the first time in my life going to be intentional about maxing out all of my tax advantage accounts. So I have an employer sponsored 401k, I have a Roth IRA through Vanguard, which I'm probably at the upper limits of like qualifying for.
Hmm.
And I also have a health savings account because I have a high deductible insurance plan. So my goal is to max out all of those accounts up to the contribution limits relative to my income. And then from there, any extra money, I'm really going to be intentional about putting that into other accounts that are going to just like give me broad based exposure to the stock markets, right? I'm full believer in index funds. I buy a lot of Vanguard total stock market fund in my Roth IRA and also in my health savings account. But I'm
Hmm.
also really excited about getting into, just kind of being more intentional about investing in dividend paying companies, like really building up like my dividend income beyond just like the indices that I'm invested in. And I'm also really excited about like learning more about REITs, real estate investment trusts,
Hmm.
as kind of like dabbling in real estate. But so if I when I am successful in investing 50 or so percent of my income by the end of next year, I should be hitting $100,000 net worth. So fingers crossed on that. And then
Hello.
from there, it's just about, buying and holding and really living below my means. But kind of my big goal is to hit $1 million net worth this decade. So by
Hmm.
2030, that's definitely something that I feel like is it's definitely going to be a challenge, but I feel like it's attainable, and I think also scaling my business. So I'm really excited to follow in your footsteps, right? To see how you have been able to grow your business even in the last 18 months.
It's
Um,
wild.
it's been crazy. So I think I'm also just inspired to do that as well, right? Because I think the more that I can scale my side hustles and my businesses, the more that I can also just pump more money into the markets and grow my net worth.
Absolutely.
So
Yes.
that's how I'm thinking about it.
I love it. That is a great plan. And yes, I was about to say, yes, girl, you're going to have the LLC. You're going to start taking advantage of
Yes.
employer type of retirement accounts. You're going to have your solo 401k. You're going to be maxing that out too. And
Yes.
yes, just making that money. And I think this is
Mhm.
what's so important about fire. Like, guys, when you're thinking about fire and you're thinking about being financially independent and early retired, quote unquote, even though like retirement is a very subjective thing, you
Mhm.
got to start building like what you're going to do when you don't have to work anymore, right? So your business is
Right.
something that you're building that you're probably going to keep doing even after you're financially independent because you're passionate about it. And
Right.
so now's the time where you can take money from your W2 job, invest that into this business so that you have this cash engine for you working along with the stock market, along with any other investments. Like, that's super powerful.
So powerful.
Yeah.
And then I think from there it's just kind of being open to different things, right? I'm so excited to kind of just get to a place where I'm no longer kind of like feeling chained by my scarcity mindset, right? So it's like,
Mm,
yeah, like I want to like own property in Baltimore where I'm from. I want to, like I mentioned, like travel for a year longer. I
mm-hmm.
want to see more of the continent of Africa, right? I want to achieve being work optional and being able to say, yeah, actually I'm good on this job, right?
Yeah.
And then of course just to give back and really tangible ways. Obviously, I definitely see myself giving back in the form of inspiring and educating people through finance, but really being able to kind of put my wealth behind investing in resources, facilities, people, politicians that are really just going to do the work that is going to be required to make just this an equitable future for all of us, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
that's for me what FIRE is about for me. It's not just about hoarding wealth for myself and my family, but it's about really being a part of a movement of women of color who have the capital to be able to say, yeah, no, we're not with that. Like,
Yep.
yeah, no, we this is how we are gonna solve these problems, right? Because we see what the world looks like when wealthy white men do it, and that it's not it. Okay,
It's
it's
not
just not
working,
it.
guys. It's not working.
It's not working.
I love that. Yeah, that's great. And so, do you see yourself being financially independent, being fire here in the US, or do you see yourself kind of being a digital nomad? Like what does that look like for you?
I would love to be a digital nomad. I am definitely keeping that vision close to me as something that
Mhm.
I want to achieve.
Yeah.
Um, like even in my late 20s and early 30s, right? It's so funny because when I was in college, it was just like when I learned about that, it was just like, oh my God, this sounds so cool. How do I do this, right? It's like so funny just to kind of think like how things kind of come full circle, right? Like I remember at one time in college, I really thought that I wanted to be um like a foreign service officer, like just kind of like
Mhm.
working on behalf of the United States. But now I'm just like, I'd rather just work for myself and not kind of like be the face of neoliberalism, capitalism all around the world.
Mhm.
But yeah, so for me, like I think that that is a big goal that I have for myself in terms of building and scaling finances, really being able to kind of document what it's like to gonna go from okay, a girl in debt who's just living in New York City to a powerhouse of a businesswoman who's able to say, yeah, I'm going to embark on this next journey to see more of the world on my terms and travel as fast or as slow as I want because I know that I'm making that internet money. Like all of those things are part of my vision. But yeah, I would love to live in more places than just the United States. I think that I probably will always kind of be close to the United States just because my family's here and
Right.
I want to still definitely be a part of my family's life, and none of them are kind of with the whole geograph yeah, they're just not with the moving around as much as I
Yeah.
am. So but yeah, I definitely want to see more of the world. I want to see more of the continent of Africa and just not just kind of being limited to just the places that I've known thus
Yeah.
far.
That's so super exciting. And I literally cannot wait to just continue to follow your journey
Thank
along this path.
you. Oh,
I'm
thank
rooting
you
for
so much.
you and I'm so excited for you. And I'm so thankful for you because I don't think you realize the impact that your voice has in this community. It's so important to have women talking about this stuff. And not just any woman, Black women. Okay. You are like
Yes.
literally shining this light of hope and possibility in a world that can feel really fucked up. And it
Yes.
is fucked up. And so I think when we can still be go beyond the day-to-day struggle and hope for something like better, I think that that's super powerful. Like it gives us a reason to keep fighting.
Wow. Oh my God. Thank you so much. I'm literally tearing up over here like this is this is so beautiful. Just thank you so much. Just because yeah, like I said, y'all, I've been through the ringer, right? Like I
Mhm.
don't want I hope no one comes away from this episode thinking that like I have been someone who's always had it figured out, right? Everything
Yeah.
that I know today, I've learned for myself. Like I am breaking chains even with my own family, like getting them to see wealth for the first time in different ways, encouraging my mother to become debt free, like something she's
Mm.
never had in her lifetime, right? Saying to our whole family, like, we are going to start a family LLC and we are going to invest in some cash flow and assets. Like, hello, what are we
Hello.
doing? Like, it's just like, so I'm just so thankful to just kind of hear you kind of acknowledge me and just kind of where I'm at because I just sometimes it's so hard and it's so hard even just kind of showing up as an entrepreneur, showing up knowing that, I got this whole other life that I'm managing in terms of working in corporate America and just having to show up as a Black woman in all these spaces.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
So I thank you so much.
absolutely. It's my pleasure. All right. So before we wrap up the interview, I want to know, what is your money mantra?
My money mantra is I attract abundance in all areas of my life.
Mm,
So not
yes.
just money, but like, yeah, just really pushing past. I think for so long I just like made myself small. I made myself small. I like had a scarcity mindset around things, especially as it relates to money, but now I know that I can attract abundance, and that's what I see for myself.
Amen to that. All right, Cinneah, this conversation has been freaking amazing. So for people that want to find
Yes.
out more about you and follow your journey, where can we find you?
Yes, please follow me on Instagram at fly.nance. That's FLY.NANCED for travel inspiration and to keep up with my debt free and fire journey. And for anyone who wants to learn more about how I paid off debt quickly, definitely be sure to check out the links in my bio for my debt free guide and any other courses or classes that I'm rolling out at the time.
Amazing. Thank you so, so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me and for having this space where we can talk about these things unapologetically, and in a safe space where we can inspire other women to join us. So thank you for
Mm.
all that you do.
I hope you absolutely love this conversation with Cinneah. I know I can speak for her and myself when I say that we are in this business to normalize the idea of being a wealthy woman of color. We want to normalize things like talking about investing, talking about financial independence, talking about retiring early, talking about saving versus being in debt. Just breaking the stigma and breaking the norms. We're trying to challenge the ideas that we've been told our success, right? For us, debt is not something that we should just accept as the norm. Living paycheck to paycheck is not something we're willing to accept as the norm. Us not being in a better place financially than our parents is not what we're going to accept as the norm. And so I hope that this conversation inspires you to think outside the box, to really start asking yourself, what does success look like for you? Does that look like being able to retire your parents? Does that look like being able to retire at 45 versus 65? Does that look like being able to pay for your niece's college education? We got to start thinking bigger. We got to start moving in ways that are going to help us do bigger and better things. And so until next time, guys, I hope you stay inspired. I hope you stay empowered. And I hope you stay poderosa. On the Yo Quiero Dinero podcast and associated entities, all information provided is for general information purposes only and does not constitute accounting, legal, tax, or other professional advice. Listeners should not act upon the content or information found here without first seeking appropriate advice from an accountant, financial planner, lawyer, or other professional. We assume no responsibility for information contained on this podcast and associated entities and disclaim all liability with respect to such information, including but not limited to any liability for errors, inaccuracies, omissions, or misleading or defamatory statements. Usage of this podcast and associated contents constitutes an explicit understanding and acceptance of the terms of this disclaimer.